"Buy me, cowboy," the most beautiful Apache slave said when she saw the man at the market. Maya lived on the edge of the prairie, where the winds swept across the wide fields, carrying the scent of wildflowers and earth. The town she called home was small, quiet, and simple. Most people knew each other by name, and life moved at a slow, steady pace. It was the kind of place where the sun rose and set with little fanfare, and everyone went about their work with quiet determination. Maya had grown up here, learning to care for her family, to respect the land, and to live simply. Yet despite the beauty around her, there was a sadness in her heart that she could not shake. She had always felt a quiet loneliness, one that no friend, family member, or task could completely fill. It wasn't that she disliked people. In fact, she was well liked. Her neighbors appreciated her honesty, her hard work, and her gentle way of speaking. She often helped the elderly carry water from the well, tended to the children in the village when their parents were busy, and worked alongside her father in the small garden that fed her family. She smiled, laughed, and shared stories like everyone else. Yet deep inside, she felt a hollow emptiness. Sometimes late at night, when the house was quiet, she would sit by the window looking out at the stars and whisper to herself, "I have no one to marry. I'm alone." The words felt heavy, pressing on her chest, but she spoke them anyway, as if saying them aloud could ease the ache in her heart. She had dreams, simple dreams, like anyone else. She wanted a family of her own someday, someone to share her life with, someone to laugh with, someone to come home to after a long day. But as the years passed, it seemed like those dreams were slipping further away, like the sun setting behind the distant hills. She woke early to help her mother prepare breakfast, swept the small wooden floors, and fed the chickens that clucked and scratched in the yard. Afterward, she would walk to the town's small market, where she helped sell vegetables and handmade goods. She loved the market because it was lively and colorful, with children running between stalls, women laughing as they bartered over prices, and men telling stories about the day's work on the fields or in the stables. Yet even in the middle of the crowd, Maya often felt invisible, as if a wall separated her from the world. Her family noticed her quiet sadness, though they never said it out loud. Her mother, a kind and patient woman, would sometimes place a hand on Maya's shoulder while they worked side by side in the kitchen. "You'll find your happiness," she would say softly, with a small, knowing smile. But the words, though comforting, did little to lift the weight she carried. Life in the town was simple, but it could be lonely. Many of Maya's friends had married and moved to neighboring villages, leaving her behind. She loved seeing them happy, of course, but the emptiness of returning to her small home alone each evening was difficult. She would light a fire in the hearth, sit down with a simple meal, and watch the flames dance as the night grew dark. Sometimes she read old letters from her friends, letters filled with stories of love and marriage, children and celebrations. She would smile at the words, but the happiness in them made her heart ache in its own way. She spent hours walking through the fields, feeling the tall grass brush against her hands, listening to the soft hum of the wind through the trees, and watching the horizon stretch endlessly. The prairie had a quiet magic about it, one that made her feel free and alive. She would talk to the animals she cared for, to the flowers she planted, and even to the sky above. It was not the same as having a companion, but it gave her some comfort. She found strength in the earth beneath her feet, in the steady rhythm of nature, and in the small joys of each day. But even amidst the beauty and peace, the feeling of being alone was constant. She longed for someone who understood her, someone who would listen to her without judgment, someone who could share both the quiet moments and the laughter-filled ones. She dreamed of evenings by the fire with a kind smile across from her, of hands held tightly during storms, of whispers shared in the darkness when words were not enough. These were simple dreams, yet they seemed so far away, almost impossible to reach. Maya often wondered if she had done something wrong, if perhaps her life had taken a path that would never lead her to companionship. She would watch other couples in the village, walking together to the market, helping each other with chores, laughing under the sun, and she felt a mix of happiness for them and sadness for herself. She tried to push the sadness aside, focusing on work, on family, on friends, but at night, when the world was quiet and still, it would return, heavier than before. Her father noticed her quiet moments too. A hard-working man with weathered hands and kind eyes, he never pushed Maya to marry, but he sometimes spoke of love gently in stories about his own youth. "Life has a way of surprising us," he would say, pouring water into a clay cup. "You never know who will walk into your life. Sometimes it's when we least expect it." Maya would nod, offering a small smile, but the words felt distant. She wanted to believe them, truly, but her heart was cautious, wary of hope that might never come. One day, as she walked through the market carrying a basket of fresh vegetables, she noticed a new face. A man, tall and strong, dressed in worn but clean clothes, was helping a farmer lift sacks of grain onto a cart. His movements were careful and deliberate, and there was a quiet confidence about him that drew Maya's eyes without her intending to look. She didn't know him, and she didn't speak to him, but something about his presence made her heart flutter. For a moment, the loneliness that always seemed so heavy felt lighter, almost as if a new possibility had entered the air. The man, whose name she would later learn was Luke, seemed equally absorbed in his work. He carried himself with a quiet dignity, moving with the rhythm of someone who had spent years understanding the land and its ways. He noticed her glance but did not approach. It was a brief, fleeting connection, yet it lingered in her mind long after the day ended. That evening, as she sat by the fire in her small kitchen, Maya thought about the new man in the village. She wondered where he had come from, what his story might be, and whether he, too, had felt the weight of loneliness. For the first time in a long while, she allowed herself a small spark of hope, though she did not dare give it a name. She continued her work, tending to her family, helping in the market, and caring for the land, but a new sense of curiosity had begun to grow within her. Maya's life was still quiet, still filled with routine and responsibility, but something had shifted. The loneliness was still there, yes, but now it carried a whisper of possibility. The days went on, each one blending into the next. Yet in the midst of ordinary life, a new chapter was quietly beginning, one that neither she nor Luke could yet imagine. She returned to her nightly habit of sitting by the window, gazing at the stars, and whispered again, "I have no one to marry. I'm alone." But this time her words were accompanied by a subtle, unspoken hope, a thought that perhaps, just perhaps, someone might come into her life and share the journey she had walked alone for so long. And so, Maya's story of solitude and quiet longing began, not with excitement or fanfare, but with the simple, fragile beginnings of a new connection, one that would slowly grow and change her life in ways she could not yet foresee. The day Luke first helped at the market had left an impression on Maya, even though she barely spoke to him. She found herself glancing toward the square whenever she had a moment, curious if he would appear again. The town, though small, always had its bustle during market days. People from nearby farms came to sell vegetables, fruits, and homemade goods. The air was filled with the smell of fresh bread, herbs, and the earthy scent of vegetables. Children ran around, laughing and chasing each other while women called out prices to buyers, their voices rising above the general chatter. It was on a bright morning, the kind where the sunlight felt soft and warm, that Maya saw him again. Luke was helping a farmer with a cart of hay, stacking the bales carefully so none would fall. He moved with strength, but also a careful patience, making sure everything was balanced. Maya noticed the way he worked, how focused he was, how his movements were steady, and something about him seemed different from the other men she had met in the village. There was no rush, no hurry, just calm, deliberate care. Maya felt a mix of curiosity and nervousness as she watched him from behind her stall. She wondered if she should say hello or if it would be better to stay out of his way. Before she could decide, a small accident happened. A basket of tomatoes toppled from the edge of her stall, rolling across the dirt path. Maya gasped and rushed to pick them up, but before she could reach them all, Luke stepped forward. "Here, let me help you," he said in a calm, even voice. He bent down carefully and started picking up the tomatoes, handing them back to her with a smile that was kind but not overly familiar. Maya felt a strange warmth in her chest. There was something comforting about his presence, something that made her feel a little less alone. "Thank you," she said softly, trying not to let her voice shake. "No problem," he replied. "It happens. Don't worry about it." For a moment they just stood there, surrounded by the noise of the market. But in that small space, it felt quiet and personal. Their hands touched briefly as they passed the tomatoes back and forth, and Maya felt a spark, small but unmistakable. She looked up at him, catching his eyes for the first time. They were a clear, steady blue, like the sky after a rainstorm, and they seemed to hold both strength and gentleness. "Are you new here?" Maya asked, trying to keep her voice casual.
"Yes," Luke said, nodding. "I just came from the town over."
"Thought I'd help out and see how life is here."
Maya smiled faintly. It's a quiet town.
"Things move slowly, but people are kind." Luke nodded again. "I've noticed. It's different from where I came from, but that's a good thing." They talked a little more, sharing simple words about the market, the weather, and the work they did. It wasn't a long conversation, but it was enough to make Maya feel something she hadn't felt in years, a sense of connection, as if someone finally understood, even in a small way, the quiet life she led. After that day, Luke began appearing more often in the village. Sometimes it was at the market, helping someone with a heavy load. Sometimes it was at the stables, checking on horses or assisting with repairs. Maya found herself noticing him more and more, her heart quickening whenever she caught sight of him. She wasn't sure if he noticed her in the same way, but even the smallest interactions, a nod, a smile, a few exchanged words, made her day brighter. One afternoon, the town needed extra hands for a small festival they were planning. There would be music, dancing, and games for the children. Maya was busy arranging flowers and preparing decorations when she realized she was paired with Luke for a task, setting up the stalls for the festival. She felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. She didn't know why she felt so affected by his presence, but she did. Working together, they carried baskets of flowers and decorations, their hands brushing occasionally as they passed items back and forth. They laughed at small mistakes, like when a string of lights tangled or a banner refused to stay in place. Luke's calm, patient manner made the work easier and even enjoyable. Maya found herself opening up, talking about small things she usually kept to herself, her love for the land, the quiet beauty of the prairie, the satisfaction of a day's hard work. Luke listened, really listened, without interrupting or judging. He shared stories, too, Small pieces of his life, like growing up on a neighboring farm, learning to ride horses, and the simple joys he had found in life. The more Maya listened, the more she realized how rare it was to find someone who could share a conversation without rushing, without distraction. By the end of the day, the festival was ready, and the town was buzzing with excitement. People admired the decorations and the careful arrangements of food and flowers. Maya looked at Luke, noticing how the sunlight caught his hair, how his smile was easy and genuine. She felt a warmth in her heart she hadn't experienced in a long time. That evening, as they cleaned up the last of the supplies, Luke said something that made Maya pause. "You work very hard, Maya. I can see how much you care about this town, about the people here."
It's admirable.
Maya.
Felt a blush rise to her cheeks. "Thank you. That means a lot." They stood there for a moment, neither speaking, just looking at each other. The air was calm, the noise of the festival fading in the distance. Maya felt something shift inside her. She realized that for the first time in a long while she didn't feel so alone. There was someone who noticed her, someone who seemed to care, even in small, quiet ways. Over the next few weeks, their interactions became more frequent. Luke would offer help with chores or errands, sometimes just stopping by to say hello. Maya found herself looking forward to these moments, her days brighter because of his presence. She began to feel a small hope growing inside her, though she kept it cautious, careful not to let herself dream too far ahead. The townspeople began to notice the connection too. Friends would comment on the way they laughed together, how they seemed to understand each other without needing many words. It wasn't anything official yet, but there was a quiet bond forming, one that was visible to anyone paying attention. Maya still had moments of doubt and fear. She worried that her loneliness would return, that perhaps this connection was temporary or fragile. But Luke's steady kindness, his patience, and the genuine interest he showed in her life helped ease her worries. She began to trust that maybe, just maybe, she wasn't as alone as she had thought. One day, as they walked together along the edge of the prairie, Luke spoke quietly. "You know, Maya, it's not often I meet someone who understands the quiet parts of life. Most people are too busy, too distracted. But you notice the small things."
"You care?" Maya looked at him, her heart racing.
She felt a lump in her throat and struggled to find words. Finally, she whispered, "I've always felt low. It's hard sometimes to think someone will ever see me, really see me." Luke stopped walking and turned to face her. "I see you," he said softly, his eyes meeting hers. "I see everything. The way you work, the way you care, the way you live. And Maya's chest felt tight with emotion. She wanted to smile, to laugh, to cry, all at the same time. She had never heard anyone say such words to her, never felt someone look at her with genuine admiration and understanding. They stood there for a long moment, the wind rustling through the tall grass, the sun low on the horizon. The world around them felt both vast and intimate, as if it existed only for the two of them. Maya realized that the loneliness she had carried for so long was beginning to fade, replaced by a cautious hope that grew stronger with each passing day. By the time they returned to the town, the sky had turned a soft shade of pink, the air cooling as evening approached. They parted ways with a small wave, each carrying the unspoken understanding that something important had begun. It wasn't love yet, not fully, but it was a start, a connection, a bond, a first step toward something neither of them could have predicted. Maya returned to her home that night, sitting by the window as she often did. But this time, her heart felt lighter. The stars twinkled above, and she whispered to herself, "Maybe I'm not so alone after all." And in that quiet, ordinary town, amidst the rhythm of daily life, two lonely souls had begun to notice each other, and the beginnings of a story, one of companionship, understanding, and gentle love, had quietly, irreversibly started. After the festival, life in the town returned to its usual quiet rhythm, but something between Maya and Luke had changed. Their brief conversations and small interactions had grown into something more meaningful. It was subtle at first, a shared glance while passing in the market, a small smile when their paths crossed, or a brief conversation while carrying water or tending to chores. But each moment left a lasting impression on both of them. Maya noticed how Luke would pause to help someone struggling with a heavy load, how he listened patiently when children asked him questions about horses, and how he seemed to notice things others often missed. It wasn't the grand gestures that caught her attention, but the quiet consistency of his kindness. She found herself thinking about him during the day, wondering what he might be doing, or replaying small words he had said with careful attention. But Luke, too, found himself drawn to Maya's presence. He admired the way she moved with care and purpose, the way she treated everyone around her with respect and warmth. He noticed how she laughed, a soft, musical sound that seemed to brighten even the dullest of days, and how her eyes reflected both strength and a gentle vulnerability. He wanted to learn more about her, to know her thoughts and her dreams, and he found himself seeking reasons to be near her, even for the smallest tasks. One sunny morning, the town organized a day of community work. Everyone was asked to help clean the streets, repair fences, and tend to the public garden. Maya and Luke were paired to work together, clearing weeds from the garden and planting new flowers for the upcoming spring. At first, they worked in silence, concentrating on the task, but soon their conversation began to flow naturally. "I didn't know you liked flowers so much," Luke said, picking up a small trowel. Maya smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "I like to see them grow. They remind me that even small things can make a big difference." "I understand that. Life can feel heavy sometimes, but small things, they matter." Their hands brushed occasionally as they worked side by side, planting and watering. The simple acts of cooperation built an unspoken connection. Maya felt a warmth in her chest she had not felt in years, and Luke felt the pull of something new, gentle and comforting. They talked about simple things: the weather, their favorite parts of the prairie, memories of childhood. But through these words, they were learning about each other in a deeper way. By midday, they took a break and sat on a fallen log, drinking from small clay cups of water. The sun shone warmly, casting long shadows on the ground, and the soft rustle of the trees added a quiet music to the day. Maya looked at Luke, noticing the way he squinted slightly in the light, and felt a flutter in her stomach. "You seem different from the other men here," she said softly, almost shyly. "There's something in the way you see things." Luke smiled, a small, genuine smile that reached his eyes. "Life teaches you in ways you don't expect, and I've learned to notice things, like people, like you." Maya felt her cheeks warm. She wasn't used to being noticed in this way, with such careful attention and kindness. Her heart, which had been so cautious for so long, felt lighter, freer. She wanted to speak, to say something, but the words caught in her throat. Instead, she simply smiled and continued tending the small plants, letting the silence speak its own quiet language. After the community work was done, The two walked back toward the town together, carrying small tools and leftover flowers. The conversation continued, more natural now, flowing easily like a gentle stream. They shared stories of their pasts. Luke spoke of long days riding horses across distant fields, of winters that were cold and harsh, and of quiet evenings spent under the stars. Maya shared her experiences growing up in the town, helping her family, and learning the ways of the land. Through these shared stories, they discovered small commonalities and shared dreams. Both had known loneliness and the desire for companionship. Both had learned to find small joys in the simple parts of life. And both, though cautious, began to realize that they could trust each other with these truths, without fear of judgment. As the days turned into weeks, their friendship deepened. Luke would help Maya with errands, carrying heavy baskets or assisting her with tasks in the garden. Maya found herself waiting for these moments, looking forward to his presence, and noticing the small details about him, the way he moved, the way he spoke, the way he seemed genuinely interested in the world around him. One evening, Luke invited Maya to walk with him to the edge of the prairie. The sun was low, casting a golden light across the fields, and the wind carried a gentle scent of wildflowers. They walked side by side, sometimes in silence, sometimes talking about small dreams or hopes for the future. The quiet comfort of each other's presence was new and precious, a reprieve from years of loneliness. "Maya," Luke said finally, stopping to look at her, "I like being around you. I've never met anyone who sees the world the way you do. It makes me feel like there's more to life than I thought." Maya looked down, feeling a flutter in her heart. I feel the same. I've spent so long feeling alone. But with you, it's different." They stood there for a long moment, the breeze moving through the tall grass, the sun slowly setting. The moment was quiet, but filled with unspoken understanding. Maya felt a sense of peace she hadn't known in years. Luke's presence was steady and gentle, a calming force in a world that often felt uncertain. In the following days, they continued to spend more time together. Luke would stop by when Maya was at the market, offering a small smile or helping her with heavy crates. They worked together in the garden, planted new vegetables, and shared stories over simple meals. Each day strengthened their bond, slowly transforming the cautious friendship into something deeper. The townspeople began to notice the closeness between them. Some would comment on the way they laughed together or how Luke seemed to notice Maya in a way others did not. But neither of them rushed, allowing their relationship to grow naturally, like the flowers in the garden they tended together. One rainy afternoon, as they worked inside Maya's small home repairing a broken shelf, Luke reached out to steady a piece of wood that wobbled. Their hands touched, lingering just slightly longer than necessary, and they shared a brief, shy smile. Maya felt her heart race. She realized that she no longer feared being alone in the same way she had before. With Luke, the possibility of companionship, of shared life, felt real. By the end of the week, their friendship had grown into a quiet, mutual understanding. They both knew that something important was developing, something neither could ignore. And though neither had yet spoken of love or commitment, the trust and care they showed each other laid the foundation for what was to come. One evening, Luke invited Maya to sit with him on the small hill overlooking the prairie. The sky was painted in shades of pink and orange, the wind moving gently through the grass. They watched in silence, the moment shared, but unspoken. "You know," Luke said finally, "I've been lonely for a long time. I thought I could handle it, that I could be okay on my own. But meeting you, it changes things. It makes me want more than I've allowed myself to hope for."
Maya turned to him, her heart full. "I've felt the same."
For so long I thought I would always be alone. But now I don't feel that way. Not when I'm with you." They sat there for a long time, words few but feelings many, the connection between them growing stronger with each passing moment. Maya realized that her fear of being alone had begun to fade, replaced by hope and trust in Luke's presence. Luke, too, understood that he had found someone who could share both the quiet and joyful moments of life with him. Their bond had grown from small gestures and shared tasks into a deep understanding, the kind that doesn't need grand declarations or dramatic moments. It was in the way they smiled, laughed, worked together, and simply existed in each other's presence. And though the future was still uncertain, both knew that they had found something rare and precious, a connection that could withstand the quiet challenges of life and the simple joys of each day. As they walked back toward the town, the prairie bathed in the soft glow of evening, Maya felt a sense of contentment she had never known before. She realized that her loneliness, while still a part of her history, was no longer her defining feature. With Luke by her side, even in small ways, life had begun to feel full, hopeful, and rich with possibility. And so, the bond between Maya and Luke grew stronger, built on patience, understanding, and small acts of kindness. Each day brought them closer, their friendship slowly blossoming into something deeper, laying the groundwork for the next chapter in their story, a chapter filled with trust, care, and the quiet promise of shared lives. Weeks had passed since Maya and Luke began spending more time together, and their bond had grown quietly but steadily. Each day brought a deeper understanding, a sense of comfort that neither had felt before. Their small town, with its familiar streets, gardens, and fields, seemed to hold a new warmth when they were together. But despite the growing closeness, both of them carried a quiet caution. Loneliness had been their companion for so long that it was hard to fully trust the feeling of belonging. One late afternoon, a soft drizzle began to fall over the town. The clouds were low and heavy, and the air smelled of wet earth. The streets were almost empty, save for a few people hurrying home. Maya had been helping her mother in the kitchen when she noticed Luke walking past her window, carrying a basket of firewood. Without thinking, she grabbed her coat and ran out to meet him. "Luke!" she called, her voice bright despite the rain. He turned and smiled when he saw her. "Maya, I didn't expect to see you out here." "I wanted to help," she said, laughing softly. "It's a little messy with the rain, but maybe we can make it better." Together they carried the firewood into her home, laughing as the water dripped from their hair and clothes. The cozy warmth of the kitchen, combined with the soft light from the small fire in the hearth, made the space feel safe and intimate. Maya realized that moments like these, simple, quiet, ordinary, were the ones she had longed for all her life. And now she was sharing them with someone who understood their value. As they worked together, Luke paused and looked at her with a seriousness that made Maya's heart beat a little faster.
"Maya," he said, "I need to tell you something." Her stomach fluttered. She had a sense of what was coming, but she tried to keep her voice calm.
"What is it?" He took a deep breath, as if gathering courage. "I've been lonely for a long time. I thought I could handle it, that I could live my life without expecting more from it. But spending time with you, it's changed things. I feel something I haven't felt before, and I don't want to ignore it." Maya's chest tightened. She wanted to speak, but words failed her. She simply nodded, encouraging him to continue.
"I don't know exactly what the future holds," Luke said softly, "but I know that being with you feels
right. And I don't want either of us to go through life feeling alone anymore." Maya felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes. For so long she had feared that her life would always be empty in that way, that her dreams of love and companionship were impossible. And yet here was someone, right in front of her, expressing exactly what her heart had been longing to hear. I feel the same," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I've been alone for so long. I didn't think anyone would ever see me, really see me. But with you, it's different. I feel like I can finally breathe." Luke reached out and took her hand gently. The touch was firm yet tender, a promise of care and understanding. Maya felt a warmth spread through her, a sense of safety and belonging she had never known before. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to imagine a life that wasn't lonely. They sat together in the quiet kitchen, watching the rain fall outside, and for a while, they said nothing. The silence was not uncomfortable. It was filled with unspoken words, shared understanding, and the comfort of each other's presence. Maya realized that this quiet, intimate, ordinary moment was more meaningful than any grand gesture or dramatic declaration. It was real, tangible, and filled with hope. Over the next few days, their conversations became deeper, more personal. They shared stories from their pasts that they had not told anyone else. Luke spoke about the winters he had spent alone, the nights he had walked under the stars, thinking about the life he wished he could have. Maya shared memories of her childhood, of the times she had felt most isolated, and of the quiet moments when she had dreamed of companionship. Through these stories they discovered not only their similarities but also their vulnerabilities. Maya realized that Luke's quiet strength came from experience, from having faced loneliness and learned from it. Luke realized that Maya's gentle care for the world around her was a reflection of the compassion she had carried, even in solitude. They both saw in each other the reflection of their own struggles and hopes, and this understanding drew them closer. One evening, as the sun set behind the distant hills, Luke invited Maya to walk with him to the small river that ran along the edge of the town. The air was crisp and cool, and the soft light reflected off the water, creating patterns that danced across the surface. They walked side by side, their hands occasionally brushing, the closeness filling the spaces between them with unspoken meaning. "Maya," Luke said quietly, "do you ever feel like life moves too slowly? That it keeps you waiting for something you don't know if you'll ever get?" Maya thought for a moment, looking down at her feet as they walked along the riverbank. "All the time," she admitted. "But sometimes I think the waiting makes us notice the small things, the things that matter the most, like moments like this with someone who understands." Luke smiled, turning to look at her. "I feel the same way. I've learned to appreciate these moments because they're real. And being with you, it feels like life is finally making sense, even if just a little." They stopped by the river, the gentle current moving quietly past them. Luke reached for Maya's hand again, holding it with care. "I don't want to rush anything," he said softly. "But I need you to know that I care about you more than I can easily explain." Maya felt a tear slip down her cheek, a mixture of relief, happiness, and love. "I care about you too," she whispered. "I was so afraid that I would always be alone. But now I feel like I'm not." They stood there, hands intertwined, watching the water flow and feeling the wind on their faces. It was a quiet, ordinary moment, yet it carried the weight of years of longing, fear, and hope. Maya realized that vulnerability could be beautiful when shared with someone who truly cared. Luke realized that trust could grow slowly, but when it did, it could create a bond stronger than either of them had imagined. Over the next several days, their closeness continued to deepen. Luke would often stop by Maya's home, helping with chores, or simply sitting with her in comfortable silence. Maya found herself looking forward to these visits, her heart light and warm with anticipation. They shared meals, laughter, and quiet conversations, learning more about each other with every passing day. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the stars, Maya turned to Luke. "I've never felt like this before," she said softly. "I've always been careful, afraid of getting hurt. But with you, it feels safe. It feels like I can finally be myself." Luke nodded, his eyes reflecting the soft glow of the stars. "I feel the same. I've been careful too, but you make it easy to trust again. You make it feel like maybe loneliness isn't permanent." Maya leaned her head slightly closer to his, feeling the quiet strength in his presence. They sat like that for a long while, the world around them fading into soft shadows and starlight. It was a moment of shared understanding, vulnerability, and quiet love, one that neither of them would forget. And so, in this small town, among familiar streets and fields, Maya and Luke discovered the power of opening their hearts. They realized that vulnerability was not weakness, but a bridge to connection. They had both carried loneliness for so long, but by sharing their fears, their hopes, and their hearts, they had begun to create something new, something strong, and something real. In that ordinary quiet town, two people who had once felt alone were now learning to trust, to hope, and to love, not in grand gestures, but in the simple, beautiful moments of life. And as the days passed, they both knew that this was only the beginning of a journey that could change everything for them, together. Days passed since the quiet walk by the river, and the connection between Maya and Luke grew stronger with each passing moment. They no longer felt the loneliness that had shadowed their lives for so long. Instead, they found comfort in small routines, walking together through the fields, helping with chores, sharing meals, or simply sitting in the warmth of each other's company. Each smile, each glance, each quiet word reinforced the bond they had built, slowly transforming trust into love. Luke knew in his heart that he could not keep these feelings unspoken forever. He wanted to show Maya how much she meant to him, to make it clear that she would never have to feel alone again. He spent the next few days planning a way to express his feelings, something simple but sincere, something that would reflect both the depth of his heart and the life they shared in the small town. It was during the preparations for the spring festival that Luke found his opportunity. The festival was a beloved event in the village, a time when everyone came together to celebrate, decorate the streets, and share food, music, and laughter. It would be the perfect moment to speak from his heart, surrounded by people who had witnessed the quiet growth of their connection. On the morning of the festival, Luke walked through the town carrying a small bouquet of wildflowers he had picked from the prairie. The flowers were simple, yet beautiful: daisies, lavender, and tiny bluebells that swayed gently in the breeze. As he approached Maya's stall at the market, he felt his heart race. He had rehearsed the words in his mind countless times, but now that the moment had arrived, he realized that no preparation could capture what he truly felt. Maya looked up as he approached, her face lighting up with a smile that made Luke's chest ache with emotion. "Good morning, Luke," she said cheerfully, brushing a loose strand of hair from her face. "Good morning, Maya," he replied, holding out the small bouquet. "These are for you." Maya's eyes widened in surprise. She took the flowers gently, inhaling their soft fragrance. "They're beautiful," she whispered. Luke nodded, feeling a warmth spread through him. "Not as beautiful as you," he said softly, his eyes meeting hers. "I wanted to give you something, to show how much you mean to me." She felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes, not from sadness, but from the overwhelming tenderness in his words. For so long she had longed for someone who would see her, really see her, And now, standing before her, Luke did exactly that. The festival began in full that afternoon. Children ran between stalls, laughter filled the air, and the scent of fresh bread and pastries mingled with flowers and earth. The town was alive with joy. And yet, for Maya and Luke, the world seemed to shrink to the space they shared. They walked together, helping with decorations, handing out small treats, and greeting familiar faces, but their hands often brushed, and their eyes met with quiet understanding. As evening approached, the festival's music and dancing began. Lanterns were lit, casting a soft golden glow over the town square, and the air was filled with the sweet sound of violins and laughter. Luke led Maya to a quiet corner near the old town fountain, where the lanterns reflected softly in the water. The music and celebration were around them, yet they felt as though they were in a world of their own. "Maya," Luke began, his voice steady but filled with emotion, "I've tried to find the right words for so long, but I realized I don't need fancy words. I just need to tell you what's in my heart." Maya's eyes searched his, filled with anticipation and a little nervousness. She sensed that something important was about to happen, something that would change both of their lives forever. "I've been alone for a long time," Luke continued. "I thought I could manage, that I could be content with solitude. But then I met you, and everything changed. You've shown me kindness, understanding, and a joy I thought I would never experience again. And now I can't imagine my life without you." She had longed for these words, yet hearing them spoken aloud, directly to her, was more powerful than anything she had imagined. Her hands trembled slightly as she held the bouquet, her heart full of love and hope. Luke took a small step closer, his eyes never leaving hers. "I don't want either of us to be alone anymore. I want to share my life with you, to laugh with you, to face the quiet and the hard days together. Maya, will you marry me?" For a moment the world seemed to stand still. The laughter and music of the festival faded into the background, leaving only the two of them, their hearts beating in quiet harmony. Maya felt tears stream down her cheeks, not from fear or sadness, but from the sheer relief and joy of knowing that someone she cared for so deeply felt the same way. "Yes," she whispered, her voice trembling but filled with certainty.
"Yes, Luke, I will marry you."
Luke's face broke into a radiant smile. He gently lifted her hand and pressed his lips to her knuckles, a simple yet intimate gesture that carried the weight of all he had felt. Around them, the town celebrated, but for Maya and Luke, the moment was theirs alone. A quiet promise of a life together. The following weeks were filled with preparations, laughter, and planning. Though the wedding would be simple, it would be heartfelt, reflecting both their personalities and the love they had built. Friends and family helped with decorations, meals, and clothing, each contributing in their own way to make the day special. Maya found herself overwhelmed with happiness, realizing that the life she had once thought impossible was now becoming a reality. Luke remained a constant presence, gentle, patient, and loving. He helped Maya choose flowers, arrange the seating, and even shared quiet moments of reflection with her when the preparations felt overwhelming. Their bond had grown strong enough that words were no longer always necessary. A glance, a smile, or a gentle touch conveyed everything they needed to know. The wedding day arrived with a soft, golden light that bathed the town in warmth. The small town square was decorated with wildflowers, ribbons, and lanterns. Friends, neighbors, and family gathered, their faces glowing with happiness for the couple. Maya walked slowly toward Luke, her heart full, her hands clutching a small bouquet of flowers. Luke stood waiting, his eyes shining with love and pride. When Maya reached him, he took her hands in his, feeling the familiar warmth and strength that had drawn him to her from the beginning. The ceremony was simple, but filled with meaning, each word spoken reflecting the journey they had shared and the promises they were making to each other. "I promise to stand by you, to care for you, and to face life together," Luke said softly, his voice carrying through the quiet square. "I promise to share my life with you, to support you, and to love you always," Maya replied, her eyes glistening with tears of happiness. As they exchanged rings, the town erupted in applause and cheer. But for Maya and Luke, the world had narrowed to the two of them, joined together in a bond that had been forged through patience, trust, and love. After the ceremony, the celebration continued with music, dancing, and laughter. Maya and Luke moved through the crowd, greeting friends and family, but always finding moments to return to each other, holding hands, sharing smiles, and enjoying the simple pleasure of being together. The joy was not grand or dramatic. It was quiet, sincere, and enduring. That evening, as the sun set and the lanterns glowed softly, Maya and Luke found a quiet spot on the edge of the square. They sat together, watching the stars appear one by one in the sky above. Maya rested her head on Luke's shoulder, feeling the steady warmth of his presence, and realized that the loneliness she had once known was gone forever. Luke wrapped his arm around her, pulling her close. "I can't believe how lucky I am," he said softly. Maya smiled, feeling a happiness deeper than anything she had known before. "We both found each other," she replied, "and now we'll never be alone again." As the stars shone above them, they sat in comfortable silence, hearts full, knowing that their journey together had only just begun. The small town, the fields, and the quiet days would continue, but now they would be shared, filled with love, understanding, and companionship. Their story, once marked by loneliness and longing, had transformed into one of hope, connection, and joy, a true testament to the power of patience, kindness, and love. And so, Maya and Luke began their life together, not in a rush or with grandeur, but with quiet, enduring happiness. They had found each other when they were both ready to be seen, to trust, and to care. From that day forward, they faced life side by side, carrying the lessons of their past, the love of the present, and the promise of a future they would build together, full of laughter, shared work, and quiet moments that mattered more than anything else.